I mean, it's so simple. Literally, petrol bomb. Put petrol in glass, like Coke, beer, whatever. You pour petrol, and it's important that the cloth is like steady so it doesn't like flop.
I think of Lungiswa Gqunta's work as resistance against colonialism. Her conceptual pieces are jagged and striking, and at times accompanied by a thick smell of petrol or gasoline. She says she wants people to feel the discomfort of the racial segregation and violence that resulted from apartheid and colonialism. So why petrol bombs?
It's homemade. There's the petrol bomb and there's the brick. Those two weapons that are just easily available to anybody, which is what I like about it. They're not exclusive. So I try to marry those kind of two objects together. If you're fighting against the government, they've got their water cannons, their guns, their rubber bullets. You know, we took things in our houses and we just fought back with what we had. It's a personal and it's a beautiful object of defiance.
So tell me about the reasons that you use cloth and bottles in your pieces.
So the cloth, it's like bed sheets that I get from home. Mm-hmm. So every time I go home for the holidays, like I rummage through my mom's cupboard. I like to use things that are familiar to me or intimate. It's kind of somewhat trying to marry the political and the home together. Last time she did complain, she was like, well, what am I going to sleep on? And I was like, I will replace them.
Colonialism, defined simply, is when one country forcefully occupies another to take natural resources and/or settle, and then claim the land as their own. This is also known as stealing. Colonial powers disregard the societies already living there and undermine or remove their governing power. Most of today's world has been colonized by Western European countries. England and the Netherlands colonized South Africa. Decolonization removes colonial, in this case European, systems of civil, social, and economic dominance, and instead builds a system that is centered and controlled by the indigenous peoples of the country. After hundreds of years of violent treatment and disempowerment, Lungi's art calls attention to the circumstances that colonized people suffer through. But it also shows her community's ways to, in her words, protect, resist, and protest. There's much more to say about colonialism, but it's important to know that its success depends on the subjugation of the indigenous people. Land-wise, this means relocating them to the least desirable areas, like we learned in episodes 1 and 2. Economically, it means slave labor, or more recently, very, very low-wage labor. In order to maintain this long-term, suppression tactics must be used.
The dope system is a system whereby it's most prominent in the farms, like the wine farms, where the people would be paid through wine, through alcohol. It's an extremely frustrating thing, and I think it's something that went on for a long time. I think they still kind of do it sort of undercover in certain places. This piece that it's part of is with, so these go underneath like a rusted bed spring, and it's just kind of speaking about taboo in the home, but just more in terms of like females being alcoholics, mothers and aunts and things like that. And so there's something to be said about hiding that addiction or that sickness. Hence, like the bottles are wrapped, you can't really see that they're beer bottles, but all of them are beer bottles, and you see it through some parts of the sheets that are worn out. Alcohol is and was used as like a system and mode of suppression and control over a people. In sense of these petrol bombs, the same thing that is being used to your own detriment to suppress you, that you use it back as a weapon.
After time, colonial structure becomes ingrained, so even when colonial powers are ousted, their language, beliefs, and systems of governance and education remain dominant. White South Africans, the descendants of British and Dutch colonizers and 9% of South Africa's population, still hold the vast majority of the country's wealth and land. Exploited labor is a reality, especially for black and colored miners and farm workers. Today, segregation and displacement of people of color is done slyly through gentrification. But Lungi continues to resist.
The objects are a little bit more violent and aggressive, but in very subtle ways, which kind of speaks of these violences, the structural violences. Like, they subtle, they really, things that go unnoticed on the everyday, that I'm trying to say something so that people always have it in their minds. It's always a topic of discussion.
Lungi's advice for visitors to South Africa?
It's like one of those tourist things that people like to do, like go on a township tour, like we're in a safari and we're like animals to be viewed at from these fancy tour buses. It's really disrespectful. So don't do that. Don't do those things.